The hearing room was tense, filled with cameras, murmurs, and political energy. Senator Josh Hawley, known for his brash confidence and fiery interrogations, leaned forward in his seat, clearly preparing for what he thought would be an easy win. The topic: judicial overreach and federal accountability. Across from him sat Representative Jasmine Crockett, calm, composed, and calculating. Hawley cracked a grin and launched the first strike. "Congresswoman Crockett, would you care to explain how your party justifies federal overreach in court rulings that defy constitutional precedent?" Crockett didn't flinch. She adjusted her mic, locked eyes with him, and replied evenly, "Oh, I'd be happy to. But first, let's talk about the time you misquoted the Constitution, on live television." The audience perked up. A few senators shifted uncomfortably. Hawley's smirk wavered. "You remember that, don't you?" she continued. "Article 3, Section 2. You confuse jurisdiction with judicial power, and you've been pretending it never happened since." A ripple of laughter ran through the chamber. Hawley leaned back, eyes narrowing. But Crockett wasn't finished. "See, the problem isn't federal overreach, the problem is people like you misrepresenting the Constitution to score political points." The silence in the room was deafening. What Hawley thought would be a simple sparring match had already turned into a tactical takedown. Josh Hawley tried to regroup, clearing his throat with a half-laugh. "Well, that's an interesting interpretation, Congresswoman, but I think you're confusing rhetoric with reality. The American people," Crockett cut in, "the American people deserve honesty. So let's give it to them." She pulled out a printed transcript and held it up. "This is your speech from April 17th. You claimed the Supreme Court had no authority to hear challenges on state laws regarding election procedures. That's not just false, it's dangerous. And it shows either ignorance, or deliberate misinformation." She set the paper down slowly, never breaking eye contact. "And before you try to spin it, your own law school professors publicly corrected you. I have their statements too." Gasps fluttered through the audience. A few aides exchanged looks, whispering urgently. Hawley's jaw tightened. Crockett leaned forward. "You came in here thinking this was going to be a game. But when you treat democracy like theater, people get hurt. Voters get misled. Trust gets broken." She paused. "And I won't let you get away with it." The cameras caught every word, every shift in Hawley's posture, and every ounce of momentum swinging out of his hands. Josh Hawley forced a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Well, Congresswoman, with all due respect, we can debate constitutional interpretation all day." Jasmine Crockett raised a hand. "No, Senator. This isn't a debate. This is a reality check." The tension in the room escalated. She continued, her voice measured but sharp, "You've spent months grandstanding about so-called judicial activism. But when it comes to real issues, voting rights, civil liberties, reproductive freedom, you suddenly fall silent or twist the facts." She then turned to the gallery and lifted another document. "This is the case of Wilson versus Missouri, where you praised a court decision that directly contradicted a ruling you opposed just 2 weeks earlier. Same principle, different outcome, but because it didn't fit your narrative, you flipped." The audience audibly reacted this time. A low, surprised murmur spread through the room. Crockett faced him again. "Your hypocrisy isn't subtle, Senator. It's loud. And worse, it's reckless." Hawley shuffled his notes, looking for an opening, but his words had dried up. Crockett leaned in slightly, voice quiet but forceful. "You wanted to win today with sound bites. But I came with substance." The silence that followed hit like thunder. Josh Hawley sat stiffly, his eyes darting toward the cameras. He was clearly rattled now, and Jasmine Crockett wasn't done. She gestured calmly toward the viewers watching at home. "Senator Hawley wants to be seen as a constitutional defender. But every time the facts show up, he folds." She looked directly into the camera lens. "And let's be real, this isn't just about law. It's about leadership. If you're going to challenge the truth, you better come prepared, because the American people are tired of being lied to by people who think politics is a performance. The room erupted. Reporters' phones lit up. The hearing wasn't even over, and clips of the exchange were already being posted online. Hawley tried to cut in again. "Congresswoman," but Crockett didn't let him. "Respectfully, Senator, you had your chance. You brought talking points. I brought the receipts." Even some of his own party members looked uneasy. Outside the chamber, social media exploded. Jasmine Crockett just ended Josh Hawley's argument in real time. This clip should be required viewing in every civics class. He thought he had the upper hand, she buried him in facts. In less than a minute, her words had turned the entire conversation upside down. Desperate to save face, Josh Hawley leaned back into his mic with a strained smile. "Well, Congresswoman, I appreciate your enthusiasm. But I don't think personal attacks do much for civil discourse." Crockett arched an eyebrow. "Senator, citing your record isn't a personal attack. It's accountability." The audience stirred again. "You call it enthusiasm. I call it holding elected officials to their own words, especially when they hope nobody's paying attention." Hawley opened his mouth to reply, but paused. The damage was done, and he knew it. His rhythm was gone. His confidence cracked. And Crockett wasn't letting up. "You love to talk about patriotism," she continued. "But real patriotism means telling the truth, even when it's uncomfortable. You've made a habit of choosing the easy lie over the hard truth." The camera cut to Hawley, silent, eyes narrowed, lips tight. Then to Crockett, steady, unshaken, and absolutely owning the moment. It was clear, this wasn't just another heated exchange. This was a turning point. And Jasmine Crockett had just taken control of the entire narrative. Jasmine Crockett took a long breath, letting the moment hang in the air before delivering the final blow. "Let me leave you with this, Senator," she said, her tone calm but unwavering. "The Constitution isn't a weapon for politicians to wave around when it suits them. It's a responsibility, one you've consistently failed to uphold when it mattered most." She pushed her stack of documents forward. "I'm submitting this entire packet to the record, your public statements, your contradictory positions, and the rulings you've praised or condemned based purely on party convenience." Hawley didn't speak. He didn't move. "And I hope," she added, "that the next time you walk into this chamber, you'll come ready to defend your record, not just your ego." The room was still. Even staffers had stopped typing. The chair of the committee cleared his throat, visibly stunned. Thank you, Congresswoman Crockett. That concludes your time." As she leaned back in her chair, a low wave of murmured reactions echoed across the room. Even some Republican aides looked impressed, or maybe just shocked. Outside, news outlets were already running with the headline, "Crockett flattens Hawley in viral hearing moment, I came with receipts," and inside the chamber, everyone knew, Josh Hawley didn't just lose an argument, he got outclassed in every way. Within minutes of the hearing ending, the Capitol hallways buzzed like a beehive. Reporters swarmed outside the chamber, already drafting headlines and queuing up live feeds. Josh Hawley exited quickly, eyes low, dodging questions. "No comment," he muttered, brushing past microphones. But Jasmine Crockett? She walked out slowly, deliberately, surrounded by flashing cameras and a surge of interest. One reporter called out, "Congresswoman Crockett, did you expect the exchange to go viral?" She smiled coolly. "I came prepared. That's all I'll say." Within an hour, hashtags like #CrockettCrushesHawley and #ReceiptQueen were trending. Political pundits from both sides chimed in, some praising her command of the Constitution, others reluctantly admitting Hawley was caught flat-footed. On cable news, clips of the exchange ran on loop. "You brought talking points. I brought the receipts." That line had already become a political catchphrase. Even late-night talk shows were preparing segments about it. Memes circulated. Reaction videos flooded TikTok and YouTube. Hawley's team issued a carefully worded press release by evening, attempting to shift the narrative back to constitutional concerns, but no one was buying it. Jasmine Crockett had done what few politicians manage to do in real time: dismantle a Senate heavyweight. With precision, facts, and confidence. Back in her office, Jasmine Crockett closed the door and exhaled deeply. The adrenaline was wearing off, but the magnitude of what had just happened was setting in. Her chief of staff burst in, grinning. "That was a masterclass, Congresswoman. Phones haven't stopped ringing. MSNBC wants you tonight. CNN in the morning. Even some conservative outlets are asking for statements." Jasmine raised an eyebrow. "They'll spin it however they want. But the truth is already out there." She turned to her laptop, glancing at the trending clips. One had already passed 4 million views. The comment sections were flooded with praise. She ate without a crumb left. Why isn't Jasmine Crockett teaching constitutional law? Hawley should have stayed home today. Meanwhile, over in Hawley's camp, chaos. Leaked messages revealed frustration among his staff. "Why didn't you cut her off earlier?" one aide messaged. Another added, "This is worse than the CNN interview." There were even whispers of internal fallout, concerns about how his credibility would recover, if at all. But Crockett wasn't celebrating. Not yet. She turned to her staff. This wasn't just about dunking on someone. It's about setting the record straight. If we let people like Hawley distort the law unchecked, the damage becomes permanent. She adjusted her blazer. Now let's keep the pressure on. The morning after the viral takedown, Capitol Hill felt different. Jasmine Crockett had become the name on everyone's lips. Even lawmakers who usually ignored her were now taking her seriously. A senior Democratic aide leaned over during a committee meeting and whispered, "You just made half the chamber nervous, and the other half hopeful." Outside of Washington, the public response was even louder. Law students were sharing the clip as a model example of constitutional defense. Activists hailed her as a force of clarity in a swamp of confusion. Local TV stations ran montages of her greatest lines, framing them next to Hawley's frozen reaction. Meanwhile, Josh Hawley's office was in full damage control. Conservative think tanks scrambled to release op-eds spinning the event as a distraction, but their words fell flat. The footage spoke for itself. And quietly, behind closed doors, GOP leadership had one question: should we keep putting Hawley in the spotlight? Back at home in Texas, Crockett received a standing ovation at a community event she attended that evening. Elderly voters approached her in tears. Young voters asked how to join her team. Teachers requested to use her speech in classrooms. She addressed the crowd humbly. "I didn't go into that room to go viral. I went in to defend the truth. If it caught fire, it's only because people are hungry for honesty and tired of political theater." The applause was thunderous. But Jasmine Crockett knew this was just the beginning. Back in Washington, Jasmine Crockett's inbox was bursting. Campaign donations surged overnight. Volunteers signed up by the thousands. Emails poured in from law professors, civil rights leaders, and even a few quiet allies across the aisle, all with the same message: keep going. Crockett wasn't resting on the win. Instead, she called an emergency strategy session. "This isn't just about Hawley," she told her team. "It's about using this momentum to elevate the issues that matter: truth, accountability, and the Constitution." She laid out a plan: town halls across swing states, a video series breaking down real constitutional law, and a bill proposal targeting political misinformation in public hearings. "This isn't just clapping back. It's stepping forward," she said. Meanwhile, conservative circles remained shaken. Privately, some Republican senators admitted Hawley had walked into that hearing cocky and came out scorched. Publicly, though, they tried to deflect, attacking Crockett as aggressive or too performative. But those criticisms only fueled the fire. Late-night TV hosts replayed the viral moment again and again. Satirical cartoons showed Hawley holding cue cards while Crockett buried him in footnotes. Even neutral commentators had to admit, she dominated the moment without resorting to theatrics, just facts and conviction. And for millions of viewers across the country, especially younger voters, it was more than entertainment. It was inspiring. Within days, Jasmine Crockett was booked on every major network. Her interviews weren't just clips, they were headliners. On Meet the Press, she confidently defended her takedown of Hawley. When someone abuses the Constitution to mislead the public, you don't stay quiet. You stand up and correct the record, with facts. On The View, she connected with younger voters. I wasn't there to score points. I was there to protect the truth, and remind folks that courage in politics isn't yelling louder, it's standing firmer. Her approval rating soared. Fundraising broke records. Think pieces in The Atlantic and Politico began asking a bold question: is Jasmine Crockett the future of Democratic leadership? Meanwhile, Josh Hawley remained noticeably absent from major interviews. His office declined requests for comment. His usual defenders on cable news struggled to justify his silence. The viral moment wasn't fading, it was building. Clips from the hearing were remixed into campaign ads. Activists created short explainer videos around Crockett's points. Even classrooms began referencing the exchange as an example of rhetorical skill and constitutional literacy. But Crockett stayed grounded. To her staff, she said, "This isn't about me. It's about setting a new standard, where the truth doesn't get drowned by drama, and accountability doesn't get lost in applause." Weeks after the now legendary exchange, the political landscape still hadn't recovered, and neither had Josh Hawley's reputation. He returned to public appearances more guarded, scripted, and subdued. The swagger was gone. So was the blind confidence. And while his base remained loyal, many in his party quietly began distancing themselves, unsure whether he was still an asset or a liability. Meanwhile, Jasmine Crockett's star only rose. She launched a nationwide initiative, Truth in Power, a civic education campaign aimed at helping young Americans understand the Constitution, not through filtered soundbites, but through real facts and accessible analysis. The moment had transformed her from a respected representative into a national voice, someone unafraid to challenge power, armed with more than just passion, knowledge. In one interview, she reflected on the viral moment that started it all. He thought he could win with noise. But I came with truth, and truth doesn't flinch. Years later, political analysts would look back at that hearing not just as a viral clip, but as a turning point. The day a rising voice out-debated a sitting senator, not with insults or theatrics, but with preparation, principle, and undeniable clarity. And as that hearing room faded from memory, one fact remained: Josh Hawley underestimated Jasmine Crockett, and she dismantled him in seconds. And America watched it happen, live.